Welcome to the Leadership and Learning Podcast with Dr. JBT, where we dive deep into the art of leadership for emerging and advancing leaders. Whether you're just starting out or looking to sharpen your skills, this podcast is your go-to resource. We'll explore real-world scenarios, actionable solutions, and expert advice with insights drawn from Dr. JBT's own experiences and interviews with seasoned leaders. If you're serious about growing as a leader, you've come to the right place. Welcome back to Leadership and Learning with Dr. JBT. I want to start today by sharing a proverb that I heard recently, and it's just been stuck in my head. When the wind is strong, some people seek shelter, others build windmills. Let me say that again. When the wind is strong, some people seek shelter, others build windmills. Let that sit for a second, because I think that one sentence captures something profound about leadership, something that separates the leaders who survive hard seasons from the ones who actually come out of them stronger. Today, we're going to unpack that proverb. We're going to talk about what it means to face adversity as a leader, because we all know we do, right? And how the most resilient, innovative leaders in history didn't just endure the wind, they figured out how to harness it. So let's dive in. Before we talk about windmills, I want to spend a moment honoring the wind, because sometimes in leadership conversations, we rush past the hard part. We jump straight to the lesson, the silver lining, the reframe, and in doing so, we skip something important. The acknowledgement that the wind is real, that it's hard, that it knocks people down sometimes again and again. Maybe the wind in your world right now looks like budget cuts, or a reorganization that nobody asked for, or a team that's exhausted and stretched thin, or a strategy that isn't working the way you planned, or a market that's shifted underneath you faster than you could respond. Whatever it is, it's real, and leading through it is hard. The proverb doesn't say the wind isn't strong. It says the wind is strong. That's the starting point. The question isn't whether the wind will blow. It will. Trust me, it will. The question is what you do when it does. Let's talk about the first response. Seeking shelter. Now, I want to be careful here because seeking shelter isn't always wrong. There are moments in leadership when the right call is to protect your people, to pull back and wait out the storm. Wisdom knows the difference between a season to push and a season to pause. But here's where seeking shelter becomes the problem. When it becomes a permanent posture, when leaders use uncertainty as a reason to stop making decisions, when they wait for perfect conditions before they move, when they protect the status quo so fiercely that they miss the window to adapt. Shelter-seeking leaders tend to share a few common traits. They frame every challenge as a threat instead of a question. They spend more energy managing the fear of what could go wrong than imagining what could go right. And they communicate that fear, sometimes and really often without even realizing it, straight down to their teams. And here's the cost. When a leader consistently seeks shelter, their team learns to do the same. The culture becomes one of risk avoidance, of waiting for permission, of playing it safe, and organizations that play it safe in the wind don't just stand still, they fall behind. Now let's talk about the other kind of leader, the windmill builders. These are the leaders who look at the same wind, the same disruption, the same challenge, the same pressure, and ask a completely different question. Not, how do I protect myself from this? But rather, how do I use this? And history is full of examples of these types of leaders. When the music industry was being disrupted by digital downloads in the early 2000s, some of you do not remember this, but I absolutely do. When the wind was howling for record labels, most of the industry sought shelter. They fought the change. They sued their own customers. They tried to hold back the tide. And then there was Steve Jobs, who looked at that same wind and built iTunes, who didn't just adapt to the disruption, he redirected it. He built the windmill. Or think about what happened during the pandemic. Every organization faced the same wind, closed offices, disrupted supply chains, remote teams, uncertain timelines. Some leaders went into pure survival mode, shelter. Others used that moment to rethink how their teams worked, where talent could come from, and what was actually essential about how they operated. Some of the most innovative workplace transformations in a generation came directly out of one of the most difficult seasons in a generation. How did you respond during the pandemic? How did your leadership respond? You see, the wind didn't change. The response changed. Windmill builders share a few traits worth naming. They stay curious when others go defensive. They ask, what does this make possible? When others are asking, how do we get back to normal? They communicate possibility to their teams, even when the path isn't fully clear, and they understand that innovation rarely comes from comfort. So how do you do it? How do you shift from shelter seeking to windmill building, especially when the wind is genuinely strong and the pressure's real? And every leader faces this question. Here are 3 practices worth building into how you lead. I know I've done this in my own practice regularly. First, reframe the question. When you feel the wind pick up, your brain will naturally ask, how do I get through this? That is a survival question. How do I get through this is a survival question. It keeps you focused on the threat. The windmill builder's question is different. They ask, what does this wind make possible that wasn't possible before? See the difference? What does this wind make possible that wasn't possible before? That's an opportunity question. It doesn't ignore the challenge. It sits alongside it and asks, what does it unlock? Second, lead the narrative. Your team is watching how you respond to the wind. If you communicate fear, they feel fair. If you communicate paralysis, they feel stuck. Windmill builders name the challenge honestly. They don't pretend the wind isn't blowing, but they pair it with a forward-facing narrative. Here's what's hard, and here's what we're going to build. Both sentences matter. Lead the narrative. And third, move before you're ready. This one's really hard for a lot of people. Move before you're ready. Windmills don't get built by leaders who wait for the wind to stop. They get built in the middle of it. That's why it's so hard. That means making decisions with incomplete information. It means being willing to be wrong and adjust. It means trusting your team enough to bring them into the uncertainty rather than shielding them from it. The leaders who wait for perfect conditions before they move almost always miss the window. Don't miss the window. Let me bring it back to where we started. The proverb, when the wind is strong, some people seek shelter, others build windmills. Both responses are human. Both make sense. The wind is real and it is strong, and there is no shame in feeling its force. We are all human. But the leaders who leave a lasting mark, the ones whose teams look back and say, that was the season that changed everything. Those are the windmill builders, the ones who look at what everyone else was running from and found a way to turn it into fuel. So here's my question for you this week. What wind is blowing in your world right now? And what would it look like to stop seeking shelter and start building? Again, here's my question for you. What wind is blowing in your world right now? And what would it look like to stop seeking shelter and start building? Here are 3 things you can take with you. 1, name the wind honestly. Don't minimize it. Don't catastrophize it. Just name it clearly and let your team see that you see it. 2, ask the windmill question. What does this make possible? Write it down. See what comes up. 3, make one move, not a whole windmill, just one brick, one decision, one step forward that says we are not hiding, we are building. The wind is going to blow. It always does. The only question is what you build while it's blowing. Thank you for being here today. This is Leadership and Learning with Dr. JBT, signing off.